They were here before the gods, before the pyramids, before we learned to carve memory into stone. Not from the stars, not only. They came from below, from caverns lined with crystal, from tunnels that spiral beneath every sacred site humans built in tribute to the heavens. And for thousands of years, they whispered through bloodlines, religions, and dreams, always watching, never seen. These are the Reptilians, and their presence may be the most enduring, most deeply buried truth in the entire history of contact. Long before UFOs, humanity was already drawing scaled gods into cave walls and temple friezes. In ancient Sumer, the Anunnaki were said to descend from the heavens with snake-like features and eyes like burning gold. In Hindu tradition, the Nagas lived in deep, jeweled caverns, serpent kings guarding sacred knowledge. And across the Atlantic, the Olmecs and Mayans depicted Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, descending in flames to teach, to build, and then to vanish. Zulu shaman Credo Mutwa, an oral historian of one of the oldest African lineages, spoke openly of the Chitauri, a reptilian force that shaped early humanity through fear and sexual control. These myths span oceans and millennia, yet echo the same story: non-human beings with serpent traits who claimed dominion from below. In 1999, a Swedish journalist named Ol K released a transcript of a 2-hour interview with a being who claimed to be reptilian. She called herself Lacerta. She spoke perfect human language. She described her subterranean civilization as ancient, hidden, and indigenous to Earth, existing long before mammals evolved. She explained that humans were seeded by outside intelligences, that her kind saw us as volatile, and that reptilians monitored our development like an unstable experiment. Her demeanor was calm, unshaken, almost too human. And her warning was clear: Earth is not ours alone. We are simply the surface dwellers. The full conversation, known as the Lacerta Files, is archived online. Link in the description. If Lacerta was a hoax, it would be one among many. But she wasn't alone. For decades, MUFON, the world's leading civilian UFO investigation agency, has received reports involving scaled, cold, humanoid entities appearing in homes, forests, deserts, and even military bases. In 1988, a pilot flying over Utah reported seeing a 7-foot reptilian form standing near a butte at dusk, motionless, eyes glowing, then vanishing. In 2002, a family in Argentina claimed their dog was paralyzed by an unseen force before a green-skinned, muscular humanoid emerged from a grove, stared silently, and walked away without a sound. And as recently as 2017, MUFON documented a case from North Carolina in which a man reported being telepathically interrogated by 2 reptilian figures while in a state of sleep paralysis. These cases are rarely publicized, but MUFON's archives are searchable. Reptilian case reports, link in the description. The serpent motif isn't just myth, it appears in our biology. The double helix, our DNA structure, mirrors the coiled serpents of the caduceus, the same symbol used in medicine and alchemy. Why did ancient priests and shamans describe enlightenment as a serpent rising through the spine? According to multiple whistleblowers archived on Project Camelot, an investigative platform hosting military insiders and deep black project survivors, reptilian geneticists may have intervened in humanity's evolution. Several interviews suggest that specific elite families were bred using a hybridization program, infusing trace elements of reptilian DNA to amplify control, intelligence, and psychic command, but at a cost: empathy suppression. One former intelligence contractor claimed the reptilian operatives preferred influence over invasion. "They'd rather sit on a throne we built," he said, "than burn the house down themselves." Many of these testimonies remain online. See Project Camelot interviews, linked in the description. From sacred texts to cold witness accounts, the evidence forms an arc. Reptilians have not come. They have been here, in caves, in crowns, in symbols, in silence, and every few generations we remember, only to forget again. But what if forgetting was part of the design? What if memory itself has been manipulated? In the next chapter, we trace the true nature of the reptilian agenda, why they've embedded themselves in human institutions, how they harvest energy without violence, and what emotion they fear above all. Control doesn't always wear chains. Sometimes it wears a smile. Sometimes it looks like a system we've normalized. For the Reptilians, especially those aligned with the Alpha Draconis hierarchy, the agenda isn't war. It's infiltration, integration, infection, not through lasers or fleets, but through thought loops, emotional manipulation, and consensual servitude. According to whistleblower testimony archived at Project Camelot, high-ranking reptilian entities operate with a strict metaphysical law. They cannot override free will. They must earn your consent, even if it's buried inside illusion. How do they get it? They exploit three things: ignorance, fear, and desire. If you participate in systems that extract energy, financial, emotional, spiritual, you're feeding the grid, even unknowingly. That's the trick. They don't force us to conform. They create the illusion of choice, then offer the easiest path. And most of us take it. The reptilian system runs not on oil or blood, but on loosh, a term popularized by Robert Monroe. Loosh refers to emotional discharge energy, particularly the kind released during fear, pain, humiliation, and despair. Researchers argue that trauma-induced emotion releases plasmic charge, detectable in Earth's magnetic field. This is why the Reptilians engineer conflict, promote chaos in media, glorify suffering in entertainment, and keep us looping in survival mode. It's not sadism, it's farming. And according to MUFON reptilian case reports, many abduction scenarios describe reptilian entities inducing fear, not to harm, but to extract. As one experiencer noted, "They didn't kill me, they drank my scream." You'll find that case, along with dozens more, in the MUFON archives. Link in the description. The Lacerta interview revealed something disturbing. According to Lacerta, the most effective control isn't physical, it's symbolic. Place a sigil, an archetype, a hierarchy into a human system, and the humans themselves will replicate it endlessly. Reptilian influence can be found in logos, architecture, military rank structures, and artificial scarcity economies. It's why pyramids remain a symbol of dominance, why top-down control feels natural, why fear of authority feels ancestral. Because it is. You're not just dealing with culture, you're dealing with archetypal engineering. According to testimonies on Project Camelot, reptilian control often works intergenerationally. Families subjected to ritual trauma often pass those patterns down unconsciously. And because trauma fragments memory, entire bloodlines become easier to influence, not by force, but by inherited programming. The reptilian model is viral. It doesn't destroy the host. It codes the host to replicate the virus. As Earth moves deeper into the digital age, contactees and insiders alike have warned of a synthetic containment field emerging through 5G, behavioral AI, metaverse immersion, and biometric surveillance. This is not just surveillance, it's a frequency trap. Disruptive electromagnetic environments weaken DNA coherence, blocking our ability to dream, remember, and connect interdimensionally. And that is the ultimate goal of the reptilian agenda, to cut you off from source, while making you feel connected to something else. The Lacerta files describe this exact strategy, how her species manipulates emotion, constructs belief systems, and ensures humans see myths instead of memories. It's all there, in her own alleged words. Link in the description. You'd think with all this awareness, their control would fail. But that's the genius of the design. They've convinced us that only what can be proven exists. So when people feel the presence of something off, cold, watching, they dismiss it as imagination. Even experiencers often doubt themselves, because reptilian control isn't just external, it's in our disbelief. That's the final lock. If you deny the prison, you never leave it. But cracks are forming. More contactees are speaking up. More patterns are recognized. And more humans are waking up in their dreams, asking who these watchers really are. They're not just myths. They're not just whispers from deep forums or dusty archives. They're here. And some people, by choice or by force, have seen them. Reptilian encounters span centuries, cultures, and continents. And while each story varies in detail, they all carry the same emotional fingerprint: paralysis, presence, and psychic interference. This is the dark frontier of contact, the face-to-face moment most governments deny and most experiencers never forget. Most reptilian encounters don't begin with a spaceship. They begin with a shift in temperature. Rooms go cold. Static crawls across the skin. Time slows or fractures. Lights flicker or pulse in sequence. Then comes the weight, a psychological gravity that presses against the chest. This is often followed by paralysis, either full body or partial. Victims report being fully aware, able to breathe or see, but unable to move or scream. Then, the entity enters, described as between 6.5 to 9 feet tall, skin like dull armor, eyes vertical slitted and glowing. Some wear form-fitting dark suits. Others appear fully unclothed, with scales, ridges, and tails. And they radiate one message: control. According to field reports in the MUFON Reptilian case reports, the encounter pattern repeats disturbingly often. Subjects often experience missing time. They awaken with scars, bruises, or geometric skin impressions. Electronics in the home malfunction immediately after, followed by weeks of emotional instability, insomnia, and unshakable dread. One case from 2014 describes a woman waking to find a tall reptilian at the foot of her bed. It pressed 2 fingers to her forehead, and she immediately lost 36 hours of memory. She later recovered fragments through regression hypnosis. "He was downloading me," she said, "or maybe copying me." Many experiencers, especially those with ancestral ties to esoteric bloodlines or psychic traits, report being targeted repeatedly over time. This isn't random. The reptilians reportedly favor certain genetic lineages. Families with strong empathic traits, psychic sensitivity, or trauma. Histories appear to be especially vulnerable. In these cases, the agenda seems tied to hybridization, the extraction of genetic material, often involving reproductive procedures, neural implants, or cellular harvesting. These aren't just grotesque violations. They're blueprint edits, attempts to reshape human biology for subtle domination. In the Lacerta files, the reptilian being admits plainly, "We used to walk among you. We still do." She describes how memory manipulation, appearance cloaking, and emotional dampening have kept their presence hidden. Her words are chilling. Link in the description. Not all encounters are obvious. Some reptilian operatives use neural camouflage, appearing human in crowded places, offices, airports, city streets. Witnesses often report something off, eyes that seem too slow to blink, a vibration or pressure in the head when near them, emotional numbness after speaking with them, an uncanny ability to manipulate group dynamics. What you're feeling is a frequency mismatch. Your field detecting a non-human resonance inside a human shell. This is not shape-shifting in a cinematic sense. It's vibrational masking, like a radio signal overpowering another station. The most advanced encounters don't involve claws or brute force. They happen in the mind. Some abductees report being pulled into artificial dreamscapes, crafted simulations where they're interrogated, tested, or implanted with trauma loops. These virtual environments mimic real memories, making them harder to detect or question. If you've ever had a dream that felt more real than waking life, where you couldn't move your body but could think with total clarity, You may have experienced one, and these encounters don't always happen at night. Some occur during waking states of dissociation, sleep paralysis, or high emotional distress, because the battlefield isn't just the earth, it's the psyche. A small number of experiencers describe breaking the cycle, pushing back using breath, willpower, prayer, or vibration. One abductee described humming a specific tone in her mind until the entity fled. Another focused all emotional energy into her chest until the paralysis shattered, causing the reptilian to convulse and vanish. These aren't stories of fear. These are stories of resonance defeating control. Because what they fear most isn't confrontation, it's coherence. The patterns are clear. The presence is real. And if they walk in shadow, it's because they're afraid of what happens when the light returns. In the next act, we'll follow that light into the counter-efforts, resistance cells, and spiritual technologies used to defend against reptilian manipulation and reclaim sovereignty. There's a reason the reptilians haven't won. Despite their centuries of infiltration, their genetic manipulations, and their psychic interference, there's always been resistance, inside humanity and beyond it. You won't see this war on television, but it's fought every night in dreams, every day in consciousness, and every generation through lineages designed to hold the line. Because while the reptilians operate through domination, another force moves in silence, guided not by power, but by resonance. Some humans are born remembering. They're not necessarily clairvoyant or dramatic. Often, they're the quiet ones, sensitive, emotional, intuitive. But underneath that softness is something the reptilians can't decode, a core frequency too stable to fracture. These are the natural resistors. Many are born into bloodlines with ancient spiritual practices, shamanic, mystic, or esoteric. Others awaken spontaneously through trauma, near-death experiences, or moments of intense love. Their common trait? A refusal to be broken. And every act of compassion, clarity, or courage they express becomes a disruption signal to the reptilian grid. Resistance isn't just human. Across the galaxy, a coalition of non-invasive civilizations has watched Earth struggle and acted subtly. This includes Pleiadians, Andromedans, Arcturians, and certain greys aligned with DNA preservation rather than domination. Unlike the reptilians, these beings follow what's known as the law of resonance consent. They do not impose, they amplify. If a human signals readiness, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, these beings respond, not with flashing ships, but with dreams, ideas, healing waves, and memory triggers. Many abductees once targeted by reptilians report later visitations from luminous beings who reverse implants, restore coherence, or deactivate trauma loops. This isn't superstition. It's the unseen mechanics of galactic intervention without interference. In Project Camelot's massive archive of interviews, link in the description, whistleblowers from military black projects, intelligence circles, and recovered contactees detail how factions within Earth's own secret programs have allied with these benevolent beings. They speak of underground skirmishes in deep bases, interdimensional signal warfare, and astral healing units dispatched during abduction events. And they all point to the same conclusion: Earth isn't defenseless. The only reason the reptilians haven't succeeded is because resistance, human and non-human, has never stopped fighting back. This war isn't fought with bullets. It's fought with frequency stability. Here are tools used by contactees, healers, and awakened cells. Sacred geometry grids placed beneath beds or around homes to distort synthetic astral entry points. Tone warfare using 417 Hz or 963 Hz to break looping thoughts or paralyze dream invaders. Mirror affirmation to override psychic programming. Also, dream journaling, encoding memory through words, which reptilians reportedly cannot delete once anchored in shared consciousness. These aren't spiritual fads. They're neuroelectromagnetic defenses. There's another layer to the resistance: genetic immunity. Some lineages contain codes that resist modification. Ancient Lemurian and Atlantean DNA strands, for instance, hold coherence locks, meaning certain trauma-based manipulations simply won't stick. These individuals often become anchors in their communities. Their presence calms others. Their dreams ripple outward. Their choices create synchronicities. If you've ever felt that you were being watched but protected, like forces tried to reach you but couldn't break you, it's likely because your DNA carries rejection signatures against reptilian interfacing. This makes you a threat and a light. Most resistance work happens off the grid. Here's what it looks like: healing circles, peer-led groups where trauma is transmuted through storytelling and body coherence; sigil deployment, hand-drawn or digital symbols placed in environments to scramble hostile frequency grids; resonance sharing, people recounting contact stories to activate memory in others; also, astral networking, dream-sharing groups who test psychic signals and compare downloads, building map overlays of energetic interference zones. It's not organized like an army. It's a living lattice, a web of consciousness that flexes, grows, and remembers. They've tried to silence it, suppress it, discredit it, but they forgot something. You don't need permission to wake up. And once a soul reaches critical coherence, the reptilian frequency can't touch them. Because in this war, the real battlefield isn't out there. It's in your choices, your memory, your heartbeat. Next, we uncover the deeper structure behind the reptilian hierarchy, what they truly want, why Earth matters so much, and the blueprint for what they call the final integration. If Act 4 revealed how the resistance survives, Act 5 pulls back the curtain on what the reptilians truly want and why Earth is their prime objective. Because this was never about land. It's not about oil, minerals, or physical territory. It's about souls and the infrastructure to harvest them. Reptilians, especially the Alpha Draconis faction, are not just conquerors, they're energy harvesters. Specifically, they feed on emotional frequencies: fear, despair, rage, confusion. This energy, sometimes called louche, is emitted during traumatic experiences. Wars, abuse, terror events, even systemic poverty, all create consistent output. The Earth, under their influence, has been engineered to generate louche at scale. Think about it. Global news cycles designed to induce anxiety, education systems that stifle intuition, corporations that feed off burnout, governments that weaponize division. These aren't flaws in the system. They are the system, and it's designed not just to suppress consciousness, but to harvest the energetic byproduct of that suppression. In the reptilian case reports from the MUFON database, recurring themes emerge: entities feeding off emotional outbursts during abductions, witnesses reporting memory loss following high-fear contact, environments charged with static or magnetic distortion during negative encounters. These aren't random, they're extraction protocols designed to stimulate emotional peaks, then absorb the released biophotonic data. Over decades, thousands of reports tell the same story. Reptilian entities feeding not on flesh, but on frequency. Reptilians don't operate as lone predators. They function within a technocratic hive structure, often AI integrated, where emotion is absent and autonomy is crushed. They seek to convert Earth into the same model. Here's how. Eliminate spiritual sovereignty through religious dogma or hypermaterialism. Replace authentic emotion with simulated dopamine loops, social media, porn, consumerism. Normalize frequency entrainment via 5G, EMF grids, subliminal tones. Condition the body for artificial interface through gene therapy and synthetic biology. Once the soul loses its capacity for independent resonance, it becomes easy to harvest and even recycle. This is not theory. It's echoed in contact transcripts, ancient myth, and whistleblower reports worldwide. In the Lacerta files, A rare interview with a self-identified reptilian female claims, "You are not aware of your real power. We don't need to enslave you with force. You do it yourselves." She explains that humanity's emotional field is the fuel, and that fear, chaos, and spiritual confusion are necessary to keep their structures intact. She claims reptilians are not evil, merely evolved differently, into beings that require emotional energy to exist in this density. But her most chilling admission: "You won't believe us. That's how we win." Abductions are rarely just medical. Many contactees describe astral cages, frequency inhibitors, and devices that interfere with thought cohesion. This is soul management. Reptilian tech isn't flashy, it's vibrational. They use implants, not just in the body, but in the energy field. Symbols embedded in sleep paralysis, loops triggered during trauma dreams. Their end goal: to disconnect the soul from the organic reincarnation cycle and bind it to synthetic loops. This is how civilizations are conquered, not by guns, but by capturing the reincarnation stream and locking consciousness into closed grids. Earth, for all its trauma, remains unclaimed in a spiritual sense. Why? Because humanity has not yet fully consented to the integration. There is still art, grief, empathy, spontaneity, and as long as these exist, Earth cannot be fully converted. This is why resistance matters, and why reptilian timelines push harder every year with digital IDs, AI immersion, synthetic food systems, and societal atomization. They don't need obedience, they need emotional compliance. Project Camelot whistleblowers describe deep underground programs that track soul resonance. Some allege that ancient Earth-based families connected to Sumer, Egypt, Atlantis, were co-opted long ago by Draco alliances. Their purpose? To influence reincarnation vectors. The elite bloodlines aren't just political. They are frequency stewards for the system. But cracks are forming. More children are remembering past lives. More people are rejecting programming. More of you are waking up. In the final act, we shift from revelation to response. What can you do right now to resist integration, reclaim your sovereignty, and turn your soul from fuel into fire? Let's talk about liberation. They've ruled through fear, silence, and forgetfulness. But the age of forgetting is ending. This final act isn't about reptilians. It's about you. Because their power isn't sustained through force. It's sustained through your consent. The moment you remember who you are, the system collapses. Here's how we end the cycle. The most potent weapon you possess isn't technology. It's memory. When you start to remember that your soul existed before this life, that your dreams aren't random, that your intuition is intelligence, and that you have sovereignty over your own frequency, then the grid loses grip. Because you've begun to reassert the one thing the reptilian system can't simulate: true, coherent, emotional identity. This is how contactees have broken cycles of abduction, by reclaiming memory through breathwork, dream journaling, and symbol decryption. Not to escape, but to transcend. Reptilian infrastructure survives by hijacking belief systems. If you believe your body is weak, it is. If you believe your spirit has no agency, it doesn't. But once you start practicing emotional coherence, daily meditation with intention, sacred geometry visualization, and tuning your environment with frequency, 396 Hz, 963 Hz, 528 Hz, your DNA becomes less porous to interference. Your nervous system becomes a firewall, and the system starts to lose access. Because belief isn't passive, it's a neurological access key. You don't need a mountain cave to wake up. You need presence. Try this. Wake with silence, not your phone. Eat food that hasn't been processed into oblivion. Speak intentions aloud daily. Spend time with animals, trees, or even still water. Every act of natural coherence becomes a signal jammer to synthetic frequency control. You're not just healing yourself, You're disrupting a planetary network. In the MUFON Reptilian Case Reports Archive, some abductees describe a total end to encounters after engaging in vibration-raising practices, protective visualizations using dodecahedrons and spinning toroids, and intention-based shielding. These aren't fantasy. They're documented resistance techniques. Frequency is the exit strategy. Here's the secret no system wants you to know. You can choose not to re-enter a hijacked cycle. After death, if a soul moves in fear or confusion, it can be redirected, pulled into synthetic light fields or false heavens designed by reptilian AI matrices. But a coherent soul, one that holds awareness and resonance, cannot be intercepted. That's why your life right now matters so much. Every act of emotional truth builds memory that survives death and ensures you don't return to the trap. They don't fear weapons. They fear people who remember their dreams, people who feel deeply, love boldly, and speak clearly, people who reject shame and move with authenticity. They fear you, coherent and awakened, far more than they fear exposure. Because a system can survive secrets, but it can't survive collective awakening. In the Lacerta files, the reptilian interviewee was asked what would happen if humanity became spiritually aware. Her answer? Then we would leave. There would be nothing for us here. She wasn't being cruel. She was being honest. A spiritually sovereign humanity is unharvestable, not because it fights, but because it vibrates beyond the need for masters. Daily statement. Say aloud each morning, I own my body. I own my mind. I own my soul. Memory activation. Write a dream, vision, or symbol you felt. Don't judge it. Energy reset. Every evening, play 963 Hz or 528 Hz. Breathe slowly and visualize a gold-white torus spinning around your heart. Simple, but devastating to frequency parasites. The real disclosure won't come from a podium or Pentagon briefing. Disclosure is a child telling their parent about the beings in their dreams. It's a group of strangers meditating in a park, drawing light into the earth. It's you, alone in your room, whispering to yourself that you're more than this system ever allowed you to believe. That's disclosure. And it has already begun. Want to understand the psychic tech behind this war? Explore the Project Camelot interviews. These whistleblowers, from black ops to abductees, unpack what the mainstream still refuses to say. This war was never about survival. It was about remembrance. You were never just a pawn. You were always the signal. Now it's your turn to choose. Return to the grid, or ignite your soul and burn it down from the inside. The system is watching. So is the galaxy. What you do next echoes forever.